So my name is Shelby Marshall. I am, just for by purposes of background, sort of introduce myself, but for the folks maybe watching from home, I'm co-owner of a private home care agency based in Westboro called Right at Home, and we service 39 cities and towns. So we service Ashland, so that's kind of why I'm here, because it's one of the towns we service. So, and you'll keep track of time, right? Great, excellent. Okay, so home care. What is home care? So when we think of home care, folks, there's initially some level of confusion because folks think of home care as home health care or the Visiting Nurse Association. So let's talk about that for a moment. Home health care is a service that you may receive when you're coming home from typically a rehab, which we'll talk about, or a hospital. And they're services that are prescribed by a physician. They're written under physician's orders, and they typically involve a nurse, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, and a speech therapist. Okay? So they're medically necessary according to the rules of Medicare and your health plan. Whether that be Harvard Pilgrim or Fallon or Blue Cross or Medicare or Medicaid. They are shorter in duration, so they're doctor's orders for you have home physical therapy and a visiting nurse visit for 3 weeks. I'm making it up. And then they stop because you've now reached a level of where your acuity level is, you've sort of I don't want to use the word plateau, but you're better, and you no longer need those services. The beauty of home health services is that they're paid for by your insurance company, generally speaking. So that's a benefit that's paid for. There's very little or no out-of-pocket cost for seniors, for folks that are not on Medicare. There's sometimes a co-payment or a minimum visit limit. That's home health. I'm not home health, so that was the person over here talking. That was the home health person. Let me put on my other hat. I represent home care. And it's very confusing because it's home health, home care, and oh, by the way, over here, home health, that's sometimes you hear is the VNA, the Visiting Nurse Association. So people use the VNA and home health as interchangeable. Okay, now I'm over here, I should have had a different hat on or something. So home care. Home care is private. So number one, it's private and it's out of pocket, okay? The exception to that from a payment source is that you may be eligible through the Area Agency on Aging, so your Access ASAP, BayPath Elder Services. Has anyone here heard of BayPath? Yep. Okay, great. So some people don't. So that's you're an informed group. That's awesome. So BayPath Elder Services works with the state and federal agencies to provide subsidized care or services, one of which is home care. So you may be eligible based on your demographic, by your if you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, what have you, for a subsidy of home care services. Okay. Otherwise, and then there's a veterans benefit, which you're going to speak to a little bit, right? That through the Veterans Aid and Attendance that can supplement payment for that. But and then there's long-term care insurance. But other than that, home care is paid for privately. And maybe someday, whether you like Obamacare or not, or whatever the next iteration is going to be, maybe there will be some benefit through traditional insurance such as MassHealth or Medicare or other supplemental insurances. But right now, generally speaking, this is a generalization, there is not. You may have a specific health plan that has a home care component where you're not paying out of pocket, but that's generally not the case. So, what is it? What do we do? So we provide services, or home care agencies provide services that range from homemaking. So what is homemaking? It's helping keep the house clean. It's doing laundry. It's taking out the trash. It's feeding the dog. It's feeding the cat. It's helping you run errands, right? So that's sort of homemaking. Think of it as hands-off. I'm not touching you, but I'm touching your things to improve your living. I'm making a meal. I'm making a meal for you in advance. I'm freezing some food, etc. The other aspect of home care is personal care. So personal care is when I'm hands-on with you. I'm helping you think about what we all had to do to get here, right? I woke up, and I don't know about all of you, but the first thing I have to do these days is go to the bathroom, right? So, but in order to do that, I've got to physically be able to get up, and get out of bed, do that safely, walk from here to my bathroom, right? So that's ambulating. And then I've got to take care of my personal needs in the bathroom. Some people need help with that. So that's personal care. And then I say, well, now I need to brush my teeth. Some people, because of cognitive decline, have difficulty doing that. Maybe they need help with their dentures. You got to shave. I don't have to shave. That's a good thing. But you might need help shaving, helping in a shower, etc. So personal care, think of it as hands-on, right? So personal care. So home care agencies help with that. Home care agencies may also help bring you to appointments, providing transportation. So not all home care agencies do that, but some do. Home care agencies may also, but not all do, employ a nurse to help with a number of things. They might help with your care plan or your loved one's care plan, meaning if we're going to have a caregiver there, what is he or she going to do? And then they will also, nurses often help with medications. So the other thing I didn't mention that a lot of home care agencies do, most do, is help with medication reminders. So caregivers can't necessarily physically put anything in your mouth, but they can say, Elaine, it's time for you to take your morning meds, here they are, and then you're taking them, but we're reminding you to take those. Nurses, in the case of our agency and many agencies, nurses can help with your medication, what we call medication reconciliation. So that time when you go into the hospital or the rehab and you went in with 10 pills and, across the day, and then you came out with 13 pills and 2 of the pills changed. Nurses can often help with saying, okay, let's take these pills out of the box, we'll put these in, and coordinate that with your physician. So that's another thing that can be done. I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there are any questions, because typically, yes. Great question. So services can be provided typically in increments of anything from an hour to 24 hours a day. And even in those 24 hours, it can be awake care or what we would refer to as live-in care. So a good example is we have some folks that just need a couple hours a day of service. So we go in, provide, meal prep, do some work around the house, help with getting them in and out of a shower, getting dressed, and they're set for the day. We've checked in, and then, we're out of there. We have folks that home care agencies will go and have someone live with the person. So they're with that person 24 hours a day, but they rest when the client rests, right? So, and whether that's nighttime, daytime, whatever that the client's schedule is, that's when the caregiver sort of rests. Also, home care agencies will provide awake care. So there are some folks, particularly we see this with when we provide support to hospice, where you have a hospice team involved. And you have caregivers who are helping the families with respite, particularly at night. So person really has that is in a dying state, maybe very agitated in the evening. Not always, but we've seen it a lot. And so our caregivers would go in and be with that person so that the family who's also involved in the care can rest. So they're resting at night. The client is being turned, mouth swab, if there's a need to bathe, what have you. So did that answer your question?
Well, I just wondered because you said something about getting up in the morning.
Yep.
And so I thought, well, do they sleep there?
Yep. So sometimes, yes,
Come in the morning and wake people up.
It really just depends, right? And, and we, home care agencies do creative things like, because you're not going to necessarily, there might be a lockbox on the door, so how are you going to get in? So, home care agencies work very creatively with seniors and their families to sort of say, how are we going to kind of put this together? And that's the whole care plan piece. Great question. Other questions? When we were talking earlier, we were talking about rating systems, so I'll talk about that just for a moment. So if you were looking for a home care agency, I should step back for a moment and say that when you're hiring someone to come into your home, you should be careful, right? There's, we live sadly in a crazy world, and seniors unfortunately are sometimes the first targeted, whether it's through scams of, give money here, give money there. So you want to be careful about who's coming into your home. So when you're hiring a private caregiver, there are a couple ways to do it. You might say, oh, my neighbor had that lady, and now you hire that lady. That's one option. That's private. That's one-to-one. So, you're hiring me to be your caregiver. No agency involved. You can also go through an agency like ours. There are pros and cons to both, candidly. If you hire someone directly right off the street, so to speak, or your friend's friend, you're going to pay less because you're hiring them. There's no overhead. It's just their costs, and it is what it is. The downside is, one, if you have long-term care insurance, in my experience, all of the long-term care insurances require you to work with an agency. They're not going to reimburse you for a private caregiver. Whether that's right or wrong, that's their policy. But largely, it's because there's no oversight of that person. When you work with an agency, you're getting, number one, backup. So when Jen, your caregiver, is sick, or her kids are sick, or her car breaks down, or it's a snowstorm, Jen can't get there and she can't help you or help your loved one. When you work with an agency, it's the agency's responsibility, and you're paying a premium, if you will, so that Jen's backup will be there, or Jen's backup to the backup will be there. And so, as an agency, we do a ton of contingency planning. One of the questions families ask me is, well, can I have that one caregiver? I only like that one. And we say, that's great. You can primarily have that person, but because of those backup plans, we need to make sure that we have a team of caregivers that are familiar with you, your pattern, your family, your dog, whatever it is. So that's kind of a benefit to working with an agency. The other big thing is background checks. So agencies do all different kinds of background checks, and you want to be really thorough in asking some questions. Did we bring that piece with us? Okay, so we can hand that out after. So we've developed like a kind of a Q&A sheet just so that folks can, when you're calling a home care agency, you can ask, like, so what level of CORI do you perform? Do you do a CNA registry? Do you do an elder abuse registry check? Do you check beyond Massachusetts? Because the CORI, which is our state background check, is only good for Massachusetts. If you've lived elsewhere, Connecticut, Georgia, Rhode Island, and you have some sort of criminal activity, the CORI is not going to pick that up. So some agencies will do a national background check, but not all do. So again, kind of private caregiver, one-to-one, pros and cons. Working with an agency, personally, I would say more pros than cons, but again, the downside, if you will, is a premium on kind of the per hour cost. Costs range, that's a big question. So how much is this, right? So costs range from, generally speaking, I'd say $24 per hour for 3 or more hours, up to $30 an hour for 3 or more hours. So you can kind of do the math. It's not inexpensive care. And when I talk with families and they sort of go, oh my God, like, geez, I'm doing the math and that's, trying to plan for care. It's a lot of money. And, I always say that there's an element of you get what you pay for in life. And also, I always say to families, if you were looking for care for your child, sure, price is all relative to us, right? I mean, I look for sales, I cut out coupons, I do all of that, but you're entrusting an individual to care for your loved one who may have significant, compromised health, physical or cognitive abilities. And you want to ensure that, you're working with a team that can support you and understands, various disease states, et cetera. So, don't shop on price, I guess, is my, don't let that be the leading and only decision, I guess is what I would say. How many more minutes? Are we good? Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Great. I'm going to hand the mic over to Wendy Nolan from Valley Nolman. I'm sorry. I've been saying it wrong all along. From the residents at Valley Farm in Ashland, a beautiful assisted living community.
Oh. Well, thank you. I think I'm going to stand maybe behind the podium, and I can just put my literature down and kind of lean. It's comfortable. You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Oh, then I will make sure I stand in front then. How's that? Okay. So my official title is Marketing Outreach and Sales Director for the residents of Valley Farm, and we're here right in Ashland. We're having our 2-year anniversary coming up, actually this September, and you're all invited to attend. We are an independent, assisted, and memory care community. We have 80 apartments in our building. 60 of them are devoted to our traditional side, and that's called, that's the independent and assisted part. And it's a combination. It's not a set number of rooms for either one. It's really the level of care that you're coming into the community at. And then we have 20 apartments that are dedicated to our memory care community, and we call that our Reflections community. And in our Reflections community, there are 18 studios and then 2 shared apartments. In our traditional side, we have studios, 1-bedrooms, and a couple of 2-bedroom apartments. Our residents range in, if we want to use the term acuity, but also in independence, let's say, from very independent to residents. We have people who still drive within our building and who go to different activities and places locally, to residents who do need very acute care, and I would say in our memory care community mostly. Our independent level of care is really something that I think when you're making the decision to move out of your home and you're thinking about what the costs are for that, we like to use a kind of spreadsheet that lays it out. You know, what are you paying for your mortgage? What are you paying for the person to come to fix your windows and mow your lawn, and the plumber and the electrician when things go wrong? So you start to add up all these maintenance costs, and the roof that you're going to need, that's 20 grand, and painting or siding, that's another 10. What is it that you're really paying for down the line? So there's a cost level that you're looking at when you're thinking of potentially moving to a community such as ours. Beyond the cost level, though, what you're really getting is a community aspect. It's that feeling that you belong to a group. It's the socialization of that. It's the programming that we provide daily. And that's pretty consistent in general terms to independent and assisted living communities. In our community, we base all of our activities on a very holistic well-being, positive self-image approach. LCB Senior Living, which the residents of Valley Farm is a part of, focuses on Tai Chi as a form of exercise, and that engages a person on all different levels of engagement, their cognitive, behavioral, social, and physical well-being. And Tai Chi really incorporates that essence of holistic and well-being, and really helps seniors with their balance as well. We're known for our anytime dining and our farm-to-table approach to food, where we locally source ingredients as much as possible, where they're fresh ingredients and organic ingredients. And this has again, this again plays into our holistic well-being approach for our residents, and a sense of well-being and living well. In our anytime dining, our dining room is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It allows the resident to come in with the level of comfort just like you had in your own home. You can eat breakfast at breakfast. You can eat breakfast at dinner. You can have dinner at breakfast. It doesn't matter. Everything is served in a fine dining restaurant style atmosphere. We have a dedicated wait staff for that. What it allows our residents to partake of is the fact that they can have everything made to order. So all the meals are made to order. You're ordering off a full menu of over 50 items that change seasonally. And in a very I guess, regular daily life sense, you're fulfilling your whatever you like. You know, you can have more mushrooms in your omelets. You can have something spicier if you want. But medically, what it also means to you is that you can accommodate different dietary needs, and it's very easy to do that when everything is made to order, like in a restaurant. You can have a low sodium diet. You can have softer foods. You can have something that's more appropriate for a diabetic. There are different ways to accommodate all the medical needs of our residents because everything is made to order and not in big batches. And then time-wise, again, you can come down at any time you want. There's no set seating times. You're not obligated to sit with a certain amount of people. You can be as social or as quiet as you want. So it's really up to you, and it's your style of living. But when you're coming into our community, you're going to get your anytime dining. You're going to get a level of programming that we provide. You're going to have housekeeping taken care of. Laundry facilities are available. We drive our residents. If you're not able to drive anymore, we can take our residents out twice a week, not just once a week, but twice a week to medical appointments. We go on field trips and outings all the time to various all kinds of different activities, going to plays, going to museums, just going out for different walks or different activities that are just local. We have a relationship with the MFA in Boston, and we have activities related to that. So that's one level of care. And then you work into your assisted living part, which it's all integrated in our traditional side. And the assisted living part will start to now incorporate care on, and what you've heard Shelby call your, I think, ADLs, you mentioned that. And so it now starts to address your personal care. Again, help getting dressed, help in the bathroom, help showering. Those kinds of things are your ADLs, your activities of daily living. And so when you're coming into our community, you're coming in an independent level, maybe with some supports, or you're coming in at an assisted level, maybe with some supports. But in our assisted level, what's included is 2 hours a day of help with your ADLs. If you're comparing communities, and you're obviously going to look at pricing, you want to make sure that what you're looking at are going to be apples to apples, because every community prices what they offer in services differently. And you're going to want to make sure, what are you getting for your van service? What are you getting for your activities? How are your activities based, and how are they dictated, and how do they roll that out? Why? Why do you have Tai Chi? Why do you have word find? What are the reasons why, and what are those associations? So that's the assisted living side, what you're going to be getting. And in the assisted living side, then we are helping. We're doing more for housekeeping. We're doing more. We're helping with laundry once a week. So your level of service is raised up. Then we have our memory care community. And LCB Senior Living has a relationship with Harvard Medical School, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and McLean Hospital for our Reflections communities. And it also translates over to our traditional side. So in our Reflections communities, we're the recipients of the collaboration's research, and that helps dictate all of the activities that we have that are all based on empowerment for the resident. It's about having a positive self-image and being able to make choices for themselves, and the communication that's involved in doing that. And so that collaboration really dictates all of the different kinds of services that we have. At this point, can I ask if there are any questions? Yes. Okay.
One is, does your facility have a pool?
We do not have a pool. We have various walking clubs. If swimming was something that was very important to someone, they would not come to our to our community. Yes. I've certainly run into that as people ask questions like that all the time. What we can allow, we do have pets. We have a dog and a cat on site. As long as the residents are able to take care of that respectfully, there's no problem with that. We do have walking clubs.
The question that I wanted to know was, in your traditional building, you said there's different levels of service. Do you charge on a different level of services?
When we have residents that move in, everyone is, the word's assessed, okay? They're assessed. So they're given an assessment by our resident care director. She's a nurse. And I guess that's one thing also to point out. We have nursing care, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, and then overnight all of our nurses are on call, and we always have aides overnight too. So there's a certain oversight that we always provide. But yes, our residents, I guess, need to be seen by our nurse, our resident care director, in order to understand what level of care they're going to need when they move in. We want to make sure that we're going to be able to handle that level of care and provide the service that they expect and that we say we're going to give. So that's a very important piece to that. Absolutely. You're welcome. Are there any other questions that you have?
One of the questions that came up from earlier was, is there a rating scale, like an established rating scale for assisted living facilities?
You know, Shelby, I am not familiar with that. I have to say, okay.
CMS has rankings and all of that, but I'm not familiar. I know there's like caring.com and, you know, that's a category folks, consumers can rate, but I wasn't aware of
A consumer rating?
or no, like an industry rating. I'm not aware of that. Right. Like home health agencies and rehabs have CMS rankings.
Right.
Medicare rankings, but I'm not, even USA Today and kind of world news rankings, right? But I'm not aware of that for assisted living, so I presume there's not.
You know, I can't really address that. And I will have to say, I'm relatively new to assisted living. I come from a home care background for 9 years. So that's a good question, and I will find that out.
I'm just not, I thought, I didn't know if that was something. So my sense is there's not an established ranking. It's sort of a little bit more, I'm going to use word of mouth.
We do have state regulations that we do have to follow. There are. As far as rankings like skilled nursing kind of thing or star rankings, I personally haven't heard of that. So I would say, I mean, in my experience, I haven't seen it. If there are, it might just be something arbitrary in the community or, consumer-wide. Thanks a lot, Shelby. I will find out, though. We are all private pay, and very similar to home care, we will work with our residents coming in with the aid and attendance benefit, with long-term care insurance. I personally have long-term care insurance, and I knew that what it was that I wanted to have it cover. And again, it has to do in my policy with ADLs being covered, and then I get a certain amount of day, and there's time that you have to wait and things like that. So. It's about $225 a day, a little more than that. If you really wanted to, I hesitate in doing that. And the reason is because we do want to talk to families about what it is that they're particularly looking for. Sometimes there are, I guess, corporate specials, if you will, seasonal specials, or a certain promotion that's coming up. I can't say all the time, but sometimes that happens, and so prices can vary. I would say that a traditional studio is going to be somewhere around $5,000 a month, $5,200 a month, and that's for the independent when you're coming in basic. But again, it's about comparing apples to apples. So you really have to know what it is that you're going to be getting and what that provides. That's for the apartment, and it includes all the different services that we provide in the community. We do. We have 8 couples, and then there is pricing for that as well, for the extra person. And I can talk to you offline about that too. Sure. Sure. Well, what I encourage people to do is always go in and visit the communities that they're interested in, because there are different aspects to each one. You know, I personally believe that we offer a very premium community. It's a luxurious community, but it's a very warm and inviting community as well. Our residents are very active and engaged. I guess outings that we have and the services we provide are top-notch. And so you really want to compare everything that you're seeing in the places that you're looking at. So I do encourage you to go to your communities, always have a meal there, see how you like the food, see what is going on and how people are engaged within those activities. And then you can kind of see how you feel about fitting into that.
Add to your point, Wendy, that I think it's important. Sometimes it's so hard. You said you're here with a friend or for a friend. Sometimes it's so hard for individuals who are caring for someone with, some cognitive, physical disability to get out of the house. But I think it's important to go to an assisted living or and have that experience and bring their loved one with them, because how they are treated as a couple or as individuals will give a good feel, and that's true of a home care agency. A little less so than rehab, because typically you're kind of going from one to another and you're just going, you may not have a choice. And it's true of also a hospice agency. You're the consumer, whether your insurance is paying for it or not, and you should be comfortable with your choices and how you're treated when you walk in the door, whether that person, if your loved one is has severe dementia, how that person is treated is representative of, how they're, the community.
Right.
And you're going to get a good feel from that. So Wendy is absolutely right that you want to go and sort of experience it.
Well, Shelby makes a good point too, and one of the things that we like to do is we will, if your friend is not able to make it to the community on their own, we'll go out and we'll pick them up and bring them in, or we'll go out and visit them and bring a meal. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, a lot of times it has to do with where your friends are. So, if they feel that it's, that they want to stay local because their friends are here, it's about finding that right fit in the community for them. And it's about showing them, what is it that they love about, that place. Maybe it's really right in their backyard at Valley Farm. So, and they maybe just have not been over to experience it. So, we're willing to work with families in a lot of different ways so that they can try us out, if you will, and get a taste for what it's like. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right.
So I want to be respectful of your time.
Yes.
I want Cindy to get out your head.
Okay.
Plenty of time after. We'll all stay and sit for questions and answers if you guys want to ask more specific questions.
All right. And I'll turn it over to Cindy, who is also a partner of ours, and we do work with agencies like Shelby's as well, and Shelby has a very good agency. So to my other partner here.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, now the fun part begins, all right? Nursing homes, and they're not called that anymore. They're called skilled nursing facilities or rehab facilities. And I just want to say that the difference between, there are a lot of differences, but the primary difference between, say, an assisted living or home care is that the skilled nursing facility is a medical model, basically. So when you come there, you can come for a variety of different reasons. And my point today is to tell you a couple, maybe 3 of those major types why you'd come to a skilled nursing facility, and then who pays for it. Because that's also a big, big concern and very confusing. And I do this all day, every day, and people, you know, they find answers. The answers are all out there, but it's a lot of work for people to figure it out. So if we can help today in any way, small way. So the first thing is most skilled nursing facilities are rehab facilities. Rehab means it's more like a subacute thing. I'm having my knee replaced. I'm fine. I'm living at home, but I'm getting a hip replacement. I'm fine, but I might not be able to go home right away. There's nobody there to help me. And so I'm going to go take advantage. Your doctor makes the recommendation when you're finished getting your hip replaced, and he says, you know what, you do real well at a rehab facility. I want you to go there. When you come to a facility for rehab, that is paid for by your health insurance because it is a medical necessity, basically. So your Medicare, I'm assuming the majority of you have Medicare, but for those who don't, even younger people have hip replacements or they're in car accidents, and again, a medical situation, your health insurance will pay for you to stay and have nursing, skilled nursing care 24 hours a day, and also all the benefits of a rehab facility, which includes occupational, physical, and speech therapy. So you're supervised, your care supervised, your ambulation, and basically our goal and the goal of our therapists is to get you out of there and back home. Literally, I would say it averages 2 to 4 weeks on an orthopedic type of situation where you're having the hip, knee, whatever. You're back home and in the loving hands of home care and or a home health. So it works very, very well like that. And you'll see a lot of these places, people come and go, and it's a constant movement. Then another option is people who have, they're seriously deconditioned because they've had a stroke. This is another reason why you are taking advantage of a skilled nursing facility. You've had a stroke, you've had a massive heart attack, you've had major surgery that requires you to be in the hospital for several weeks. You're in the hospital for several weeks, maybe ICU, and your body is getting deconditioned. You are very weak by the end of that period. There are some people that we see that spend, I just had a patient go home after being in a hospital for 2 months, then in a long-term acute care hospital like say Whittier or Spalding for another month, and then in our subacute rehab facility for 2 months. This guy was literally so close to being dead. It's a miracle he's alive, and he just went home. But it took him a long time. And his body had been deconditioned from being sick in the hospital for so long. So they say for every week that you are in the hospital, you lose about 3% of your muscle conditioning. So 3 to 5 weeks in the hospital, you could be up to 50% of your muscles. You're so deconditioned. A lot of people will come following that acute experience in the hospital, and they'll spend a month, maybe 2 months in the rehab facility, getting back to a point where they can either A, go home, or maybe their life has changed, their body's not the same it was, so maybe they will go to an assisted living facility with services, and in the 1 or 2 cases, they won't be able to do either. They won't be able to go home or go to assisted living. And so then they convert to long-term care in a skilled nursing facility. Okay, so that's how that works. And then, so basically, while you're there, let's back up to that deconditioning thing. You've been in the hospital, had a stroke or whatever. You come for rehab, you've made great progress, your health insurance again is paying for you. And that's the Medicare is a great product. May it live and be well, you know, because it is fantastic insurance. And insurance is the topic for another conversation another day. But in any case, the tricky situation comes when somebody says to you, you know, look, we've all evaluated you. The doctors say, look, it's not safe to go home anymore. You really, really need 24-hour care. In that case, that's when a person will convert from that skilled nursing to more a custodial care type of thing. So you're in a nursing home, as they used to call it, but you're in there long term. Which, you know what, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's nobody wants to be there by any means, but there are situations where it's necessary and you can live out a good life, okay? But my point is that it is one of those possibilities. So the other thing I wanted to mention was, you know, I think it's confusing too, because a lot of us overlap, you know. We have things that we do, things that, you know, they do that we don't do. But for the most part, skilled nursing home, you need to be really sick to be in there, basically, to have your health insurance pay for you. Like, I have these discussions all the time because hospitals, you know, if you were in the hospital and you'd say, okay, I want to go to that rehab, I want to do the rehab, and they might say to you, you're not sick enough to go to the rehab. So there's all these fine little levels of tuning where people have to say, you need to be sick enough to do that. And you could have a trach that needs to have suctioning, you could have wounds, skin breakdowns that need, you know, wound vacs. You might need IV antibiotics or IV things that they can't do necessarily at home for you. So that's when insurance will say, okay, I see here that she is sick and that she does need that, and they'll pay for you, okay? And that's the main difference, because a lot of everything else, you know, a lot of the other programs, including assisted living, it's, no offense, but there's no health insurance that's going to pay for your day-to-day living. This pays for all your Medicare, obviously will pay for all your medications and so forth. I think the sticky part comes again when after you've been there, and like let's say you're there for a longer term. It's not as simple as a hip or a knee, but again, they say to you, look, you can't go home. Then what are you going to do? Because then Medicare says, look, I'm not paying for you long term. Medicare is an insurance that only pays for you during that acute recovery period. So you say, what am I going to do? I can't go home. So you have options, of course. Long-term care, health insurance, if you have that, will pay for some or part of that. MassHealth is a great program that a lot of people qualify for, that once you have it, pays for you custodial care for the rest of your life in a skilled nursing facility. And if you don't have either of those, then it is private pay, and you'll hear those ads on the radio all the time. You know, you want to give your money to the nursing home? No, nobody does. I certainly don't, for sure. I don't have any money to give, but when it comes that time, I'm not doing it. But there are ways around that. People, I know you have counselors down here. They can help with MassHealth applications. I mean, it's always good to talk about it, to think about it, because at some point we're all going to run out of money, you know, and you know, we're only hoping that all these programs are in place still by the time we all need it. So that's the main second reason why you'd go to a skilled nursing facility. The third major principal reason would be you're fine physically, you're walking around, everything's great, you see it Market Basket, but you're suffering from a cognitive impairment. And at some point, that cognitive impairment becomes so acute that you can no longer, be safe at home. You've got a situation where you don't even really remember how to call 911. You maybe had started a fire at some point. maybe, you know, you wandered out in the neighborhood and the police brought you home at 2 in the morning, you know. Unfortunately, that's a reality and it's a possibility. And so what happens then, and this is an overlap with assisted living, is you say about your loved one, you know, Dad's no longer safe to be there. You know, I don't know what to do. Where do we put him? Well, assisted livings, such as the one Wendy works at, they have memory care units where you pay privately monthly for a week or two, a year or two, or however. And then in a similar manner, nursing facilities also have memory care units as well. So we have we have programming, and the nurses are trained. It's a very highly regulated industry, the nursing care industry. So we all have to be trained. I just finished a training yesterday on dementia care, and I don't have patient care at all, but that's how strict the regulations are in the state of Massachusetts, that we all have to be trained on that. So again, that would be a situation where you would have to pay privately until your funds were exhausted, and we would help apply for MassHealth for you. And then MassHealth would cover your loved one for the rest of their life. And then, so, you know, unfortunately, all those circumstances happen, and those are the primary ones that get you into a skilled nursing facility. But, you know, I just have to say that there is a need for it. There is an overlap, I know, which makes it so confusing. My mother-in-law in Pennsylvania, my husband said, "Oh, she's going to assisted living." I said, "She's going to assisted living? She lives by herself. She's 85 years old. She goes up and down the steps one time a day, down in the morning, up at night, and but she doesn't have the income for an assisted living. I know that for a fact. So people don't know the difference between senior housing, independent living, such as Fairview Estates down the street here in Hopkinton, assisted living, skilled nursing, home care, home health care. So you're right to be confused. I mean, even we get confused sometimes. You know, you do that now? I didn't know you did that now, you know? So, you know, just keep asking questions, and just, you know, at some point ask for help, because, you know, we're all here to help. I'm sure, like you, we don't really make any money whether you decide to go there or there or whatever, but it's just learning the ropes. I know there are some people that MassHealth is so important to long-term custodial care, and it opens up the door for services too at home. I'm not pushing it. I'm just saying that, you know, it's a good thing to have at some point in your life. And that's it. Any questions you might have? No? Okay, I hope I didn't scare you. Oh, thanks. Thank you.
So my name is Teresa, but I'm going to be somebody else for just a couple minutes. I have a good friend of mine. His name is Jake Lowry of the American Veterans Aid is the name of his business. I've worked with Jake for years, and he has helped me help numerous seniors access the veterans benefit of aid and attendance. Anybody here a veteran, a spouse of a veteran, or a widow of a veteran? 2, 3? Have you ever heard of the veterans benefit of aid and attendance? Nobody has. It's wonderful when they walk in the door. I don't know what your experiences have been, and I'm able to tell them, well, I can help you access this benefit that can be anywhere from $1,100 to $2,400 a month. So I'm not going to, there's just 3 of you. I can talk to you side afterwards, but just to give you a snapshot of what the benefit entails. If you were active duty for 90 days, and one of those days was during a war, you did not have to be at war. You didn't have to. You could be sitting behind a desk in New York City, but one day during a war and honorably discharged, you potentially qualify for this benefit. That's the service piece. The financial piece of it is if your expenses exceed your income. So if you live in an assisted living, the entire bill goes towards your expenses. If you're home and have home care, the home care piece of your care is considered your expenses. So if your expenses exceed your income, you could potentially qualify for this benefit. There is another piece of it you can have up to $80,000 in assets, excluding your home, to qualify for the benefit. If you have more than $80,000, you can transition them into a trust that's designated specifically for your care only until you're passing. At that time, the funds can go to whomever. But while you're alive, the funds must be used for your care. Then you could potentially qualify. The nice part about that, and this is potentially changing, but if you transition those funds on Tuesday and you apply for the benefit on Wednesday, right now there's no look back. Does that make sense? Okay. And the benefit can be for anywhere from $1,100 for a widow, $1,700 for the veteran, or $2,400 a month for a couple. And I can't tell you what a game changer that is for a lot of people for either home care or assisted living. It's tremendous. It's truly a tremendous benefit. So if any of you are interested for yourselves or for somebody that you know, Jake, unfortunately, he's a very smart guy, but put the wrong address into his GPS today. So he's in Andover at Ashland Farm instead of here in Ashland, Mass. I can share with you his contact information and you can reach out to him directly about that benefit because it really is, it's a game changer for folks. So it's called the Veterans Benefit of Aid and Attendance. Oh, so the other piece about this benefit is if you are already receiving a military benefit, you won't receive this one in addition to, you'll receive whichever is greater. So if you're getting $1,500 a month in disability, and this one for you would be $1,700 a month, you would get this one. Does that make sense? Everybody understand what I mean? Yeah. Any questions? That's as far as I go with it. So, but it's a good sort of primer.
My recommendation for anyone that wants to try to qualify for the Veterans Aid and Attendance benefit is you work with someone like Jake, because the process, not surprisingly, love the military, but it's a bureaucracy.
Correct.
And you've got to have every I dotted and T crossed and the right paperwork and what have you, and the process can take a while. So it's always better
Right.
to start the process and have all your ducks in a row.
Correct.
So that you can attempt to qualify, because it can range from a handful of months up to 18 months.
So
depending upon the
I'll just throw Jake a little plug. He does not charge for this to help you access this benefit. He's a financial planner, but this is sort of the pay it forward piece of his business. So he does not charge you money to help you access this benefit. He will make sure that your documents are nice and neat and tied with a little red ribbon and on the desk of whomever is reviewing it. Because if it's not complete, if it's not nice and tidy, you are going to the bottom of the pile. Jake, also, if you have not heard back about your benefit within a certain amount of time, because it can take a long time, Jake will call your state rep and say, listen, I've got this vet and he's entitled or she's entitled and we're not getting what the answer that we want. Let's move this along. And he'll expedite that process for you as well. So I'm happy to share his contact information. He's wonderful. Yeah, and there's a bunch of folks out there that do this type of work.
Again, what was the name?
The benefit of aid and attendance. Veterans Benefit of Aid and Attendance.
AID and attendance.
Yeah. Present. Any other questions about that? I will get you Jake's contact. If you're interested in reaching out to him, I asked him to send me the contact information since he couldn't make it, to give me his contact information to share with you if you want it. Okay? And that's it. So I'm going to switch hats now. So this is, any of you, please don't go running out of the room. My name is Teresa, and I represent Compassionate Care Hospice. Anyone know what hospice is? Anyone have ideas about what hospice is? So, okay, what do you think hospice is? You thought hospice was the end of life. Sure. I'm very glad that you said that, because a lot of people do think hospice is end of life. They hear the word hospice and go, oh God, the angel of death is here, and they don't want anything to do with what it is. What I want you to know and what I want you to share with your friends is that hospice is a benefit. It does not mean that you are dying. We're all dying, but it does not mean that your death is imminent. So there's a couple of misconceptions about hospice that I want to go over with you and sort of clear the air, and then tell you a little bit about how the process works. So the first misconception that people have is that, oh, they're on hospice, they're dying any day now, we better get over there and say goodbye. Not true. Someone is qualified for hospice when their doctor thinks that they have a prognosis of 6 months or less. Granted, that's not a lot of time, but it's not tomorrow. It's 6 months. There are certain qualifiers that Medicare has that you need to meet in order to receive this benefit. So it can be 6 months. It can be. We have people on services with us right now who have been on hospice for 2 years. It's not. Their death is not imminent. You do need to qualify. So if you're on services and suddenly you're perked up, you've gained some weight, your symptoms are diminishing, after certain certification periods, you might have to go off because you don't qualify any longer. And we've had people do that. They graduate from hospice. It's not a benefit that ever goes away. You can always come back onto services again should you start to decline again in the future. So first misconception, you have to be dying. Second misconception a lot of people have is that you have to move if you're on hospice, that you have to go to a hospice house. Not true. I am here to tell you that you can receive hospice services wherever you are. If you're home with home care and they notice a decline and they have a conversation with you and say, you know, you might really benefit from hospice, we're happy to work with them. These are very much interchangeable parts here. If you live in an assisted living community, absolutely, we're happy to come and support you when you're living in your own apartment in an assisted living community. And as far as skilled nursing goes, skilled nursing is a Medicare benefit that Medicare pays. Hospice is a Medicare benefit that Medicare pays. You can't receive both at the same time. So if you were to be at Waterview Lodge and they determine that you're no longer going to benefit from skilled nursing services and you're discharged from PT, OT, speech, or whatever other services you're receiving, we can deliver hospice services right to you in that skilled nursing facility. So you do not have to go anywhere. So misconception number 2, you have to move to be on hospice. Absolutely not true. You can, biggest piece, in your home. You can absolutely stay in your home and we'll come to you as well. Anyone have any questions about that? Do you have to move? Anyone know? Do you have to move to be on hospice? That is expensive. Some people think hospice services must be expensive. And as a matter of fact, hospice costs you nothing out of pocket. It's expensive in that you've paid for it your entire life. It's a Medicare benefit that you have been feeding into with every paycheck that you collect. So it's foolish not to accept it when it's appropriate for you to have those services delivered. If you are in a skilled nursing facility, we will pay the Medicare pays for our portion of your bill. MassHealth would continue to pay for your room and board. If not MassHealth, there are other supplemental insurances that will pay for your room and board, or some folks come on privately depending on their financial situation. So misconception number 3, hospice is expensive. Absolutely not true. It's only for the old people. Again, not true. There are some young folks, unfortunately, that can come on to hospice services, young adults, teenagers, and unfortunately even children. It's not just an old person benefit. The majority of our patients are senior citizens, but not all of them. And this is probably the biggest one. I had this one as well, that hospice is 24 hours, when in fact it is not 24 hours. We are not in your home, at your bedside, in your apartment, or in your room in the skilled nursing facility 24 hours. We are, however, available 24 hours. An RN case manager manages your case. You have access to that person 24 hours a day. If it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you or your partner or whomever is with you are having an exacerbation of a CHF, or they're very anxious, or they're fallen, you call hospice and we come to you immediately. So we're not in your home 24 hours, but we are available 24 hours. Some of the other services that a hospice provides besides the nursing care, my particular agency has a nurse in your home twice a week. A lot of agencies provide a home health aide a couple times a week. The agency I work for provides a home health aide 5 times a week, and they're in your home for about an hour to an hour and a half to help with whatever you determine is the best use of their time. We also have a very strong psychosocial component. This is a huge life change, not only for the person who's dying, but for the family that loves and supports them as well. So we have a chaplain and social workers who support the whole family in whatever way they need. And it's different for everybody. We have one woman who's Jewish, who never had her, is it bat mitzvah when you're a female? Who never had her bat mitzvah. So we have a Jewish chaplain, and she's helping this woman receive her bat mitzvah before she passes. And she's not doing the whole full-blown routine. She's doing it quickly, but she's helping her to achieve that goal before she passes. All of our chaplains and social workers have a gift card. So if somebody likes iced coffee, they stop and get an iced coffee. We've bought, books of poetry or sushi if someone likes that, whatever it is. Hospice doesn't mean you're dying. We are just there to help you have the best quality of life you can when you've decided that you're not fighting the disease, the terminal disease that you have that will eventually end your life. It's actually a beautiful benefit that if you have the opportunity to access, and I use that word opportunity, I mean but it really is tremendous. And my hope today is that the H word isn't quite so scary as it was maybe 7.5 minutes ago. So what would happen, the process would be that if you are in a skilled nursing facility or an assisted living facility or even at home, your doctor would write an order to have a hospice consult. You would call us or whomever the suggested provider is. We immediately go out and screen you for the appropriateness of your condition to see if you meet the Medicare standards. Then a nurse comes and admits you to hospice. And it's pretty much just a once-over. She's just taking sort of a status check of where you are at. She will make recommendations to the doctor for what kind of medications should go away that aren't really necessary anymore. Any equipment that you need in your home or community, beds, oxygen, meds are all covered. And then we just start visiting as folks decline, as they transition and are actively dying. Our team, I'm not sure, I can't speak for others, our team are there every day with the family to support. And last misconception, that when the patient dies, hospice is over. Absolutely not true. Hospices are required to follow the patient's family for 13 months after the individual passes through different support. It's a whole year of firsts for you, and different things come up, and we're just a resource. We will check in a couple times, but you can always reach out to us as well to make sure that you're healing and you're moving forward appropriately. And our social workers are great at doing that, kind of assessing where someone's needs are. So does anyone have any questions for me about hospice and what it is and what it isn't? Lauren. So her question was, can I talk about the difference between hospice and palliative care? And the answer to that is no, I can't actually. I think palliative care is, and maybe you guys know and can actually answer the question. Yeah, then you know what? I'm not going to think. I'm going to just give the microphone to Lauren Schiffman, who works with Shelby at Right at Home, and she's going to answer that question.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm happy to hear the answer, actually.
I think there's a really important differentiator between hospice care and palliative care, and at a very basic level, when you receive hospice care, you're no longer receiving curative treatments for your disease state. So if you have cancer, you're no longer receiving chemotherapy. If you're receiving palliative care, however, palliative care is pain management. So in addition to the psychological, social, emotional, and physical treatment that you're getting to manage your pain and to manage your condition, you're also allowed to receive curative treatments in conjunction with all of that. So they're very similar, and a lot of folks use them interchangeably, but they're not similar, because on one you can still receive curative treatments, on the other you cannot.
Thank you. So now I know the answer to that question. And I guess I should, that's the biggest piece of hospice, is that the doctor has said your prognosis is 6 months or less, but that you're not pursuing curative treatment, that you're not doing the chemotherapy, you're not doing the dialysis, that you've kind of said, you know what, the treatment is not working, it's not going to change things, and I'm just going to ride this wave. So thank you, Lauren, I appreciate it.
Sometimes palliative care is also, is almost interwoven with, so let's say you're going to Dana-Farber for treatment. So their program, whatever their protocol, may have a palliative care component to it. Obviously they should be helping you manage your pain. So it may be interwoven into your treatment plan, if you will. And I mean that holistically for you as a person. There are agencies, although in my experience, not a lot of them, there are hospice agencies that offer hospice and palliative care, but not all do that. And that's not a pro or con thing, it's just sort of where they've selected to specialize. So typically, if you're in some sort of treatment for a disease, cancer, ALS, MS, what have you, and you're at that place where pain is a major part of your care, it's important to sort of be having that conversation about, or asking, what's this palliative care thing? I sat in this seminar 2 years ago and I remember someone saying that, right? Am I getting that now? It's also equally as important to say, I'm not there yet. I'm not 6 months away. I know I'm not. I feel it in my bones, but I want to understand hospice, and let's have an honest conversation about it, because it is an amazing benefit that sadly folks don't take advantage of at a point in time when they and their families need it most. So, having that honest conversation when you're in that state, but really before, is so, so, so important. Difficult, but, do it over a glass of wine is what I say.
So if there aren't any more questions, I again want to be respectful of your time. We will stick around for a bit if anyone has specific questions they want to ask any of us. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. I hope you found it helpful. And if Kim has the need to bring us back in again, we'd be happy to do it again and answer any questions that you guys might have down the road. And I have Jake's contact over here for anyone that needs it. Okay? Thank you very much.